Good morning and welcome to the Mini Storage Messenger Self-Storage webinar series. I'm Poppy Behrens, publisher at MiniCo, and we're happy to have you in the audience today. If you're joining us for the first time, this is one of several informative webinars planned for self-storage owners, operators, managers, investors, developers, and other industry professionals. Today's webinar, Highway to Successful Marketing ROI, is sponsored by Accountable Management and Realty, Inc., a Florida-based company that specializes in full-service management, consultation, and training in the self-storage industry. Our presenter is Brenda Scarborough, president and founder of Accountable, whose forward-thinking approach to marketing and training focuses on manager participation, customer service, and community involvement. Brenda is a long-standing member of both the Self-Storage Association and the Florida Self-Storage Association, and she is an instructor for the Self-Storage Association's Manager Certification course. In addition to that, Brenda is a frequent speaker at association events and conferences. This year does mark the 33rd anniversary of Mini Storage Messenger, providing the self-storage industry with in-depth news and information. We also publish a variety of other self-storage educational sources, such as those you'll see listed on your screen. For more information, please visit ministoragemessenger.com. We invite you to submit questions throughout today's webinar. To do so, simply type your question into the question area and click the send button. Depending on the question, we will either answer it privately or to the entire group. We will try to answer as many questions as we can during the webinar and at the close of the webinar during the Q&A period. Those that can't be answered due to time constraints will be answered by Brenda via email after the webinar. This webinar is being recorded and will be available for viewing on demand from our archives at ministoragemessenger.com. And now it is my distinct pleasure to turn the presentation over to one of my favorite people in the industry, Brenda Scarborough. Morning, Brenda.
Morning, Poppy. Thank you. And it's afternoon here, but it's okay. I can work in the morning over there. It'll give me 3 more hours.
Still morning here.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us and taking the time out of your busy schedule. I hope that when we're finished, you will at least have gone away with something that you can physically take and use. I go to so many of the seminars and sit and listen, and too many times I just feel that we kind of touch the surface. So I'm going to create this presentation so that it's a real working tool for you to be able to take back and actually use. We'll just start with, in the highway to marketing ROI, and that's the return on investment, most of you know, is that I had to learn when to stop, when to proceed with caution, which meant, am I really getting a return on it, and when to absolutely step on the gas, because not only was I getting a good return, but I was getting a return for a very high percentage. Let me just take just a second here, and this is my team that we work. We are out of the Tampa Bay area. That's my entire staff, nice people. We've been in business since 1987, and our mission is to exceed expectations in all facets of stewardship. And that is my reason for doing this webinar, is that I have to be a good steward just as you want to be a good steward with your owner, or you as an owner with your money that you do have coming in. Okay, on this next slide, okay, no one used to care about ROI in the self-storage industry, and we asked why not. Well, guys, we didn't need to. In most of the country, I've been in the industry 25 years, we built it and they came. It was fantastic. What came next blindsided even the best run stores, certainly here in the Florida area. We may have been in an area that wasn't affected, or you might have been, but the stores in Florida, some of my stores dropped actually 25%. I'm sorry, my slides are running a little bit slow, so let's see. In 2005 and 2008, our stores multiplied, I'm sure in your area the same way they did here. And all of those new stores had large marketing budgets and began discounting like our industry had never seen before. In some areas, I'm not sure of how long you've been in the industry, but we were always told for years, stop the discounting. Well, in 2009, with all of that built, The Titanic truly struck ice. Occupancy and income had dropped to record lows. The industry began to spend numbers in record numbers on marketing and advertising, on anything and everything that we felt would bring the income and the occupancy back. Did we think spending more money, getting more? Well, we quickly found out it didn't. Many of you out there were probably like me, spending dollars on marketing campaigns that you really didn't even know if they worked. There we go. In many areas, we really couldn't even say if we were getting 30 calls on a campaign or 10 calls on a campaign, if we rented 10 units or 1. And why? Well, we all gave it a good college try, but we were still doing a lot of guessing, yes, and praying. It was working. We'd spend it. We'd have a yellow page ad. We'd have ads. We'd do everything we could, wondering if they really were working. And I wonder how many of you out there felt pretty much the way I did. I wanted to know for sure, but I didn't know if I could. Those of you who are managers, I know that you felt this way. Those of you who are owners, I know that you were wondering the same thing. Because many times I would ask a manager, is it working? Oh, yes, it's working. Well, I think. I'm not sure. I heard this for years, and I bet many of you did too. And then you wonder, at least I did, how can I finally turn this around? And that was by showing the managers the value of knowing this information and how it can truly make a difference to your bottom line. One of the principles, I just had recently an interview with Derek Naylor, and he asked what was the hardest part of getting to really figure out our ROI. My answer surprised him when I said it was convincing the managers that this wasn't just another task, because I do ask them to do a lot of tasks, and was going to ask, no, insist that they do, but a way for us to finally know what is working, where to spend our dollars, and how we could make the most of our money. Understanding your ROI and your return on your ROI is the difference between success and failure. We're going to talk about the yellow pages here because it was through the yellow pages that it actually made me stand up and take notice and absolutely need to know. You know as well as I do, that the yellow pages was our largest expense. They used to almost scare us into having to do the yellow pages, and we really didn't know about the yellow pages and what, in fact, we got as a return from it. So let's look at this slide, and let's look at these numbers if you can. If you'll see here, we spent $1,475 on the first one. These are 3 separate stores. 10 people called the store, and 4 of them rented. It cost me $147 for each person to call, and $368 for each of the 4 rentals. That's about a 198% return. That's the lowest amount that I will allow. If I don't get at least a 200% return, I'm already not just in the caution mode, but in the stop mode. So what does that really mean? The profit for each of those tenants was still $731 each. So I spent $1,475, and I'm going to get back $2,294. That's not a bad return. Not a great return, but not a bad return. Let's look at the next one. I spent $2,030. 27 people called the store. 19 of them rented. Cost me $75 for each person to call, and $107 for each of the 19 rentals. It's obvious when you get more rentals, the more cost per lease drops. The profit for each of those 19 rentals was $845. So that's $16,000 profit over the lifetime rental, which we'll talk about later. But that's nearly an 800% return. So in that case, that phone book was giving me what I wanted, and I could keep that size ad or make my decision even if I wanted to go up a little bit. The third one is a customer. This is an owner that I have tried every tactic to get him to drop the size of his yellow page ad, but he was convinced to stay with the large ad. We spent $4,000. 14 people called the store. Each of them cost me $290, but I only got 6 rentals. Each of those cost me $676. The profit for those 6 was $157. I think this year I'll be able to convince him that we can spend over less than half of that, and the area will produce much more of a better of a return. So for me, life is like, what my life is like with a good ROI system is woohoo. It's exciting for me because for the first time I can honestly say I know where the dollars are going. And it's really easy to be, but we must be consistent. That starts at the front line with you as managers or with owners, with you as your management team. First, we had to learn to ask the right question. How did you hear about how did you hear about us? It may not always be enough. You need to get the real answer. I looked you up online, says the customer, and I got your number from the phone book. But as you begin to listen, the customer says then in the conversation, I drive by your store every single day. So they really went either online or to the phone book just to get your number. So why would you want to give the internet or the phone book credit for your location? The next is that we use your software to gather the information. I'm not certain what software you use, but we happen to use SiteLink, and we use the inquiry tracking, but many of them either have an inquiry tracking or a prospect tracking. You have to make the decision as to what you want to do. For me, it is very important that I track not just the calls and the leads, but also who rented. That's the easy one. Your software will give you that. But if I don't know how many leads I generated, let's look at this one on the internet. If I knew that I got 20, but I didn't know that I had 34, I wouldn't know what the ratio is. 20 might be good or it might be terrible. But if I only got 34 leads from it, then 20 isn't bad, it isn't great. On internet search, I find it's a little harder for me to track that because they can come from the website, from Google, from anywhere. But let's kind of narrow down here and drill down to what this is. The internet is the hardest one, as I have said. Customers don't really know where they came from. However, on the website, in this case, the manager rented 20 of the 34 inquiries. The cost was $133 per new rental with a 617% return. You'll see this through the presentation many, many times. I could not even imagine just 3 years ago saying I would be glad to spend $132 to get one customer. Because now I realize that when I spend $132 to get that one customer, I'm going to make $819 with a 600% return. Now let's have a look at something. What if I use it as a tool to train? This manager rented just 7 more units. Nothing changes, but I rent 7 more units to the 34 inquiries. That drops my cost per rental to $98 with an 868% return. Using the average lifetime customer value, the store brought in an extra nearly $6,000. So when I'm dealing with managers or when I'm trying to show them the difference between 7 more units, and by the way, this is just over a 9-month period that this was a fairly small store that I'm using, but 7 more units made a difference of $6,000. For you owners, you know what that turns at your, if you wanted to sell your store. So if you have a bonus program, managers or owners, you're giving a bonus program, you can understand the difference of adding $6,000 to your bottom line. Let's look at another one, because internet, again, is a little bit harder. Let's look at the phone book. This is the same person that I told you about with the $4,000 that they wanted to spend. What if in a year, this year, I could convince him by dropping the amount that I spent, and then I can teach the manager to rent just 3 more units. This next slide will show you. I dropped it to $2,000, just half the ad, and increased it. So at this point, my 4% goes to 207%, which is, again, my lowest. But I still am going to get a $473 return. And by just lowering the cost and by increasing and generating those few more rentals, I increase the income by $4,000. Now, honestly, does anybody not want to know exact what those numbers are? The difference is so incredible. see if I can get this next slide. Used it. Now, you want to use the information to close more leads. And you wonder how. Well, you use the information. If you see that you are not closing internet leads the way you want, ask yourself, am I getting them the information quick enough? With internet, it's a fast world. They want it right away. So with each grouping, you will be able to decide what it is best that's going to work. We particularly found that we were losing too many customers after hours and on the weekends when the office was closed. So we have begun a click-and-store program which actually lets them rent online, not just reserve, and move in when the manager isn't there. And I'm finding every day that even people are using it now during the middle of the day so they don't have to come down to the site. So remembering that you'll be able to drill down by knowing enough about each category, and you as managers learning, what do I need to do better? If it's a referral, it's easy. Somebody did it for you. But if it's the internet, do I need to send them more information via internet? Do I need to get back to them faster? If it's on the phone, how can I convince them to come to the store and see me, or actually get their email address and start an email console, like an email marketing program, which is what I do. But your closing ratio will also help you. By using these figures and using an ROI in this way, you will begin to learn if you're closing. If you're only closing 80% of your referrals, it's not enough. But if you're closing 60 to 70% of your internet, you're doing a very good job. Let me show you a little example here of something. Your return on investment is finding what works and do it again, and what doesn't, stop. What if I told you that if you bought a shovel and dug behind the oak tree, there's a little picture for you to see, there's the tree, there's the money buried, but there's the shovel, that the average lifetime value of a customer is $800, and that $800 will replenish each time, but only if you buy a new shovel. You wonder, what the heck does that mean? Is the shovel an expense, or is it an investment? Let's put that analogy to work and replace the shovel with your referral fee. We particularly give a $25 referral. I know others who give $50. I know others who give nothing. Personally, I think it's the most important thing that we can do is to thank those people who send someone to me. I even give it to non-customers. I don't need it to be one of my customers. The most important thing you'll want to remember about a referral is that there is no true work involved. No planning, no expense until they rent, and honestly, very little additional work for the manager to sell. The person who referred you, the new tenant, has already sold your store to them. The manager just needs to bring in the run, because I just told my sister that you were a great store. What more did my sister need to know? So really, it's the easiest sell you're going to have. Many owners, unfortunately, see referrals as an unnecessary because they feel they'll send them on anyway. I disagree. The person who sends that I send that $25 to will remember you far more and send another one and then get another $25 and then send another one and get another $25. That's what is about the new shovel. You can't just do it once and then not keep repeating. My referrals have grown every year since we have started this. And I have managers who say, well, we don't really, we don't need to. She's already sent me one. I don't care. Send me 4. It's a $25 cost. And when you think about that, for 4 new, if I get 4 customers and that costs me $100, if my average lifetime is $1,000, that's $4,000 for a $400 investment. I think that's a pretty good return. But again, I was so tired of guessing at it. I wanted to see it on paper, and it's so easy. You can do it on Excel. I happen to use Derek Naylor's program, but you can do it yourself. Let's look at the referral. Let me show you a store, and you can really begin to see why you want your referrals to grow. We have 52 referrals here. Unfortunately, the way this particular program is set up, it's going to put an amount in what it costs me for each customer to actually come to the store, but it doesn't because I don't pay a referral until they rent. So it costs me $29.33 for each person, and you wonder, well, you only give $25. I incorporate in there a little bit of things like all of my goodies, my cookies, my coffee, my water, because I know that the reason they're referring somebody is because of our excellent customer service. So I kind of bump that up a little bit. But that means I got 52 customers from a friend or from just a referral. For every one of those customers, I made $937 profit. So that means that those 52 customers over their lifetime will generate $45,000. That's a 3,000% return. You can see that you really want that to work. It's not guesswork, but assurance that I am getting a return on my investment. Because of learning this principle, I have been able to confidently stop advertising in mediums that don't work and either keep that money or buy more shovels, give more referral fees. Knowing my cost for acquiring a customer, not just ballpark, but exact, has been the most empowering feeling I've had in 25 years. When I can accurately tell my clients that we should cut their yellow pages by up to 3/4% and put it elsewhere and keep it there and cut it elsewhere, maybe, and with an assurance that I'm not telling them, I think this will work. I can truly tell them this will give us a better return if we put it here. No longer can a manager, and it does require a little bit of work on your part if you're managers, of keeping track. But when you keep track, again, you can get more rentals because you know where they're coming from and what you need to get better at, and you'll know how much it costs you to bring in a customer, and more important, what is the return to your owner, so that you can actually, when you want to do that ad again, you can tell them. So guys, it isn't rocket science. If I can do it, honestly, you can do it. Let me show you. This is what I meant about when we talked about actually giving you some. This is how you do it. And again, created on an Excel spreadsheet. If you use Derek Naylor and you don't use this, I can guarantee you it is a great tool. I will tell you, though, that we particularly only do it on a quarterly basis. I don't find it very valuable on a monthly basis. So if I'm working with it, I'll put in the first 3 months. We'll do it at the end of March. Then I'll do it a combined 6 months, a combined 9 months, and then the most valuable one will be at the end of the year so that I can truly get an entire year, because some, as you know, if it's in a long-term magazine or a yellow page ad, could take some time for a return. I happen to use SiteLink, and it gives me the figures. You can see it highlighted there in yellow, that the average customer brings in $126. Our average lifetime stay, and now remember, average. I can have some that only stay a month, some that stay 6 months, but as you, I have customers who have stayed with me for 15 years in some of my older stores. So when I take the just here for a month, and those here for a year, and those here for 2, my average is 9 months. You can make that determination yourself. Mine used to be 12 months, but with the current economy, I've realized they have stayed a shorter period of time. That will grow again in time. So my average amount is $126 per customer. Again, this takes the 5x5 non-AC all the way up to my 10x40 AC. So the average unit rent is $126 times 9 months, tells me that for every customer who rents, I'm going to use the number $1,135 is going to be my return on the average lifetime customer value. Now, the cost for medium, here we go. You have to figure out, some people, again, as I said, do their ROI on a monthly basis. I do not. You decide however you want to do it, but many campaigns do take longer. So don't put in a monthly figure in here. If your yellow pages is $500 per month and you're doing this on a quarterly basis, that should be $1,500. So I have spent, my monthly investment was $1,475, and my phone book for that period of time was $2,030. Now we're going to calculate out and figure out the leads per median. This is the hardest part you are going to have to face, whether you're a manager or whether you are an owner, is to get someone to understand the importance of this number. And as I said, many don't feel it's important to track it, but I use it for twofold. I want to know what the conversion rate is, and this is the only way I can do it. And I also want to know how many are really calling me for that medium, meaning the yellow pages, an ad, a friend or a referral. If your store is getting 25 leads and you're only closing on 10, maybe it's time for a new sales training. We'll go to the next one. And we're going to figure out your rentals per median. This is really the easiest part you can do. You take it straight off of your whatever software you are using. This is how many tenants really moved in. So with my friend and my referral, I had 55 leads and 51 rented. I can tell you straight across the board of my 25, 27 stores that is always the highest percentage, because as I had mentioned, someone else did the selling for me. The other 4 that are missing here, of course I could go in, why didn't you rent those? Generally it's because grandma let them use their garage, or they just didn't close on their house, or something did happen. But the phone book, you can see, is 27 leads to 19 that are generated. We particularly are finding, as you are probably finding, less and less and less from the phone book, but the closing ratio is less as well because they go right on to the next one. Now we get to find out the cost per lead. Okay, hang in there with me. We are starting to get there. Let's look at the phone book first. It cost me $75.19 for each person to call the office, just to call. That's, or maybe even to walk in and tell me they found it through there. Now the friend referral, as I said, isn't really accurate. It says 26, but I didn't have to pay that number until they actually rented. Whereas that $2,030 for the phone book, guys, you got to pay that whether they rent, whether they call. It doesn't matter. It's a standard cost. Those are the most important ROI figures that you want to know, because you don't have a choice. You've got to pay it up front. Nobody's going to let you do it other than a referral and say, well, I don't want to really pay you for that ad until I know if I'm going to get something in return. There's rarely anybody who allows you to do that. So you're going to have to pay it, and then at the end of it, you've got that same sentence that we talked about at the beginning that said, I don't know, I think I had the calls come. When you are going, if we could kind of backtrack a little bit on the leads that are generated, I understand how difficult that is. One of the areas that we have found will help you as a manager, or owners help your managers, is to use the software itself. Rather than writing it down on little bits of paper and then trying to transfer it, I know you probably all use a little checklist, a call checklist, and that's very good. You still need that to help you stay on the right track and say the right things and get their names. But if you will go directly to your software, and I believe that all softwares have this available to you, you will save so much time and aggravation. But remember, when you are trying to know what your leads are generated, it comes from 3 major sources: from the phone, from a walk-in, and from an email inquiry. Don't skip one, because they are all equally important. But it's just so easy for you to finish talking to Joni that you have just told all about your store, and then Mr. Jones walks in and wants to pay his bill, and you have forgotten. Whereas if you had had the information up on your software, you could have put that in there and it's done. You've got your inquiry, and you'll know more of how your leads are generated. We're almost there, guys. I know this is kind of sometimes a little dry, but I was hoping to help you to see what it really means at the very, oh, sorry, I've gone a bit too far. Technology is always great when it does work. My apologies. There we are. Now, we're almost there. You can see we've reached the finish line. Now let's look all the way across. the average lifetime value of that customer that we determined way back when, because they stay 9 months, and I think it was $127. So I really am going to be able to generate, before I spend any dollars, $1,100 from, on the average, everybody. Some will only give me $300, but others are, by the time they move out, have given me $10,000. And many of you, you know that you have that as well. So if we look all the way across, let's look at the friend referral. I paid $1,475 to get 51 people to rent at my store, because every single person, I give them that $25. You as managers, just because somebody doesn't ask for their $25, give them their $25. I bet if I gave you $25, you'd remember me a lot better than you would if I just told you, or I only gave it to you once. So the profit after I paid that $28.92 to acquire that customer is $1,106. Times that times 51 people. That gives you that 3,800% return. That is a tremendous return on investment. Now look at the phone book. Again, if you remember, we talked about I would have never, ever told you that I'm going to spend $100. And I can remember people telling me, well, it's really not that much when you think about the return on investment. I thought, what are you talking about? I do not want to spend $100 to get one customer. But when you begin to see it in this manner, that I spent $106, okay, but for every person that came in, it cost me $106, but my profit for those 19 was $1,028. That's a 962% return. That is still a great return. Is it as good as the referral program? No, it's not. So my suggestion is that you work really hard on getting your referral program. Now, when you're looking at these, obviously I've only picked 2 to identify, but my ROI list could have at some stores 10, at other stores 25. But be specific. If you have a yellow page ad and you have, like I have one that's in St. Petersburg and one that's in Clearwater and one that's a small book, you want to identify each one so that next year you can make a decision which one to drop. If you have 2 types of advertising out there, don't just say print ad, but it's the print ad in the flyer and the print ad in the newspaper, so that you can specifically ask that customer and know if you're going to get something from that. When it's a drive-by, it's very difficult to calculate out what is my monthly investment on a drive-by. Well, think about it. A drive-by monthly investment is your curb appeal. If the reason they saw you is that they're driving back and forth from work every single day. So if you, and I don't know about you, but that is my largest percentage, is my drive-by. But I think that it's the largest percentage not just because they happen to drive back and forth, but because it's beautiful when they drive by. We have flowers. It looks very nice. My banners are clean. I might have an LED sign. We have the big sign out there that says Click and Store. We recycle. We have shredding machines. We have events at our stores once a quarter. So when I have an event at a store that has, and we happen to have yard sales that we combine with nonprofit groups, and hundreds of people are stopping by my store, that is curb appeal because people driving by are seeing it. So wherever you're getting the best return on your investment is where you want to go buy more shovels. You want to be able to put more money. But how do you know that if you're guessing? How do you know that if you're not really being consistent with getting all the numbers? I'm afraid that you would be doing what I did for way too many years. And it was good guesswork, and it was a good college try, but it was guesswork all the same. The consistency of your on-site personnel is a must. You must trust the data or it does you no good. I've had it, usually if I have a manager who has, and again, you can't guess. If you forgot to ask, don't guess and put it in. I had a manager who just was easier for her to click every single time that it was drive-by or it was phone book, and it was phone book. And when I really got down to it and got a new manager, I realized it was just convenient for her. So you need to trust the consistency of your data. It has to be every time. It has to be, I also knew, and you as managers will know it, I'm sorry if you're the one who does this, or owners if you see this, if there are 90 inquiries and 90 rentals, 40 and 40, 30 and 30, I can tell you that they're only putting in the ones who rented. They're conveniently only remembering when the person walks through the door and actually rents that unit. Guys, that does you no good. You must do it from the onset, from your first initial call, your first initial walk-in, and obviously we all know that your percentage of walk-in to rental is probably 92 to 95%. Reason being, they're there. You're going to sell them. You can't help but sell them. They see your store. They see you. Phone calls, my average conversion from the phone to getting the actual rental ranges between 60 and 75% as a whole. I have some stores who do much better than others because, again, it depends on the manager's presentation. Depends on whether they're listening or selling. It depends on whether they're really giving a sense of urgency, which I would recommend to all of you, because without a sense of urgency, I cannot tell you the worst line in self-storage is, oh, I've got a ton of those, come in anytime you want. There's no need for you to lie whatsoever, but there is a need for you to say, you know, let me make sure you have that unit when you want to come. I'll go ahead and reserve unit 122, and it's a 5x10 so that when you get here, it's available. I've given you that sense of urgency. Let's just look at a few tips that really do work. Your team must understand the importance. If you're only told to do one more task, or you're only told that not understanding and seeing these numbers and that 2 more rentals, guys, just get me 2 more rentals, is going to create this amount of income, and I need that to pay the increase in the taxes. You will literally be able to see the dollars and cents that it brings into it. As I mentioned, use the software you have. If you'll go, that's what hotels do. When you call the hotel and they start doing something, immediately the screen comes up there. So you can pull it up and start it from the onset of what's going on. Don't wait until they rent the unit to get all of that information into your software system. If you remember, we said learn to ask the right question and then listen for the right answer. To just arbitrarily put down what they've said, even if they say it at the beginning and you've clicked off that it was phone book, but later they tell you what it really was. Oh, well, my sister rented there, you know, a few years ago, and she did nothing but rave about you guys. It is a referral. That's a great thing, because here's your next move. You're going to solidify the rental if you go, oh, really, James? What was your sister's name? You know, we have a $25 referral program. I would love to send your sister $25 for referring you to me and once you rent the unit. Well, I kind of have him a little bit too, because now he feels a little bit of an obligation, so his sister can get $25. So it's not just about asking the right question, but it's about listening for the right answer. If you can use the information to close more leads, you can get the entire team to work on reducing your cost per new tenant and by increasing your closing ratio. Now I can show everybody, let's have a look at this. And because it's an Excel spreadsheet, if I put in 2 more, 3 more, 10 more, I can maybe create a bonus structure from it or something. But you can see on the spread exactly how much more money that you would actually make from that particular lead. Well, I'd like to give everybody some time. Oh, there's one last one, to train your team. Guys, you've got to train it on the sales. You've got to train on how to put this information in and what works so that everybody has the proper training. And then the last one is be consistent. Every call, every walk-in, every email inquiry has to go into the system so that you have true numbers. I do hope that you have a new appreciation for really learning what the return on investment is. For taking the time to listen to this presentation, I'd like to offer you either a sample report that you could actually plug your own numbers into if you'd like. You could have a free consultation on how this works. I particularly, as I mentioned before, do it through SMS. with Derek Naylor, and he has offered to allow you to use his ROI console for 60 days at no charge, which I think is a pretty nice thing, so that you can learn how to plug those numbers in. But best of all, I'm entering all of your names into a drawing that we're doing at the Self-Storage Association and the Florida Self-Storage Spring Conference that's in Orlando. I hope to see you all there in April, but it's for a Barnes & Noble Nook color. I know you'll love it because I particularly love mine, and so does my grandson because he gets to draw on it. Now, if you have any questions, Poppy will be able to kind of read them there and pass them on to me.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to just put my information up there so that you can write down in case you want to just send me an email and ask something personal. That would be just fine if it's a question you don't want to have to ask here.
Brenda, I have someone that's asked about the tracking program. Should they, if they're interested in using Derek's program, should they just email you?
Yes, and there's my email address. Derek said he would be glad to let them use it. It's been great for us. I can tell you I've learned more than I thought I could.
Okay, great. Question number 1. What do you say to the people who say it may not be working, but people will remember at a later date? Is it worth continuing in that mindset?
Ask me that one more time. I want to make sure I answer it right.
What do you say to the people who say it may not be working, but people will remember at a later date? Is it worth continuing in that mindset? Or in that mindset is what they have.
Yeah, the people who are working, I'm hoping they're saying that the customer is saying. Maybe it's a manager asking me that their owner isn't working, that thinks it's not working. This has taken me a year process of truly seeing the value of it. I saw some value in the first 3 months, more value after 6 months, incredible value at the end. But by the end of the year, when I had a full year to look back, it was definitely worth it. And if you've tried it before, go back and try it again. Now, if I haven't answered their question to what they were asking, would you ask them to, if you wouldn't mind asking it again? I am so sorry. I want to make sure I answered it correctly.
Absolutely, and I will look for that as the questions continue to come in. Next question, when you calculate your average lifetime value, do you take out the tenants who have been there long term, say 3 or more years? This seems to make the value much greater than it may be.
We did, because we recently converted to SiteLink, and I felt that sometimes those 20-year people were a little bit too much. So we kind of, it's that take the lowest and the highest and drop it. And I think that we took a percentage of those that had been there over maybe the 15-year mark or the 10-year mark and dropped those. But they do sometimes work into the equation. I have a few of my stores that have been around for 30 years who have had customers there literally for 20 years.
All right, next question. Do you offer anything to the new customer at move-in who comes from referral? Wouldn't this make the cost per lead higher than the $25 paid to the referrer?
It is, but that is part of doing business anyway, because I am going to give that to, I'd have to add that cost to every single item. I'd have to add the cost to my Yellow Pages because I paid for the Yellow Page ad and then I gave him 50% off his month's rent. So it does add somewhat to it, but unless you can physically go in and see every single customer, how many you gave it to, how many you don't, I personally try to train managers, do not give the discount unless you absolutely have to. But yes, it does, but when you're looking at it, it's better not to skew your figures, and you can look at it in this way and then kind of add that up in your head as to how much more it really costs you if you want to. That's why in my drive-by, I at least put in something of what I feel has been my yearly average of my sign, my flowers, my flags, everything, because that is cost. There is a cost related to the drive-by.
Okay, next question. Are cash referral fees legal in all states? It should be checked out before sending out the checks. We give rent concessions to current tenants only.
Cash, the only people who cannot accept a cash payment is a realtor, at least in the states that I work in. A realtor cannot accept a cash payment. We have a great strategic alliance plan that we have with apartment complexes. They can take it. Realtors cannot. Our first offer is to try and give a rent credit because they're getting $25. But in today's economy, I cannot tell you that it's at least 2 out of 3 that says, oh, just send me the $25. I could really use it. So it is absolutely legal in the state that I work in, but you may want to check your own state and make certain. And they love a check for $25. Or if you feel uncomfortable, what we used to do, but it just got so tedious, is we used to send a gift card, and they got to choose it. Target, Walmart, Publix, gas station, but it got so difficult for us that we went back to just the $25.
Okay, while we're waiting for some more questions to come in, Brenda, are there any other concessions that you use that you'd like to share?
Concessions in like
special offers for new tenants.
We pretty much, I give all the managers the ability to give up to 1 month's rent. Use it any way you want. 25% off 4 months if you have to. But again, no discounts, no concessions are given until you absolutely have to give it. Too many times we get in that knee-jerk reaction where we just give the concession or the discount before somebody even wants it. So, and if you're listening to what it is that their needs are, it allows them to make their decision as to what's going to work best for them. If you're only going to stay with me for, because you just told me you only need the unit for 2 months, I'm not going to offer you anything at that point. I may give you a little something because you've asked for something, and I may say, well, look, this is what I'll do. I'm going to waive your setup fee and give you your lock free. And at least they feel they got something.
All right, next question. Do you offer a specific move-in special for referral cards turned in versus general move-in specials?
No, I do not. They get whatever is out there, and again, special only happens when they come in. But the $25 referral, I can tell you, has been the #1 reason for increasing our referrals.
All right.
And I cannot tell you how pleased they really are that you follow through. How many customers go, wow, you're really going to give me $25 off my rent? Absolutely, Mr. Jones. And send me somebody else again, and I'll be glad to give you another $25 off. Matter of fact, your rent's $100 a month. You send me 4, and it's free to you. And some of them do. Remember, you're looking at the return on investment. So if he sends me 4, and it costs me $100, and my average lifetime is $1,000, wow, cost me $100 to get $4,000.
That's great information to remember. I don't think we have any more questions at this time. I'll just kind of give everyone a quick moment here. If you do have a question you want to send in, we'll be happy to answer it. And Brenda, I think that was a lot of great information for everybody that participated today. We would like to thank everyone. We would like to thank everyone for attending. As a reminder, you will receive an email with the link to the archived presentation, along with a special offer on one of our publications. We'd also like to remind you that you can register for any of our upcoming webinars or view any of our archived webinars on our website at ministorage.messenger.com. And I think with no other questions, we can let everyone go. Thank you for attending, everyone. Thank you, Brenda, for a great presentation, and everyone have a wonderful rest of the day.
Great. Hope to see everybody in Orlando.